Starfield is Bethesda's first new IP in over a decade and their first developed game since the disastrous launch of Fallout 76. Needless to say, there are a lot of eyes on this thing because this is Bethesda Game Studios' first big project since the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Now, Starfield is the first time that they've developed a single-player RPG since Fallout 4, and given the ongoing legacy of Skyrim, people are really hoping the developers, led by Todd Howard, are going to get back on their feet and make sure that they're respected in the world of RPG development once again. In this video, we're going to be going over everything we know about Starfield, including gameplay, release date, release rumors, as well as a newly rumored event that should be taking place sometime in March, and just generally everything else we should be expecting in the next couple of months, because if the leaks and rumors are true, we should be getting a ton of official Starfield news in the coming weeks, but more on that in a few minutes. Do you think Bethesda Game Studios has what it takes to make a comeback? Let me know down below, but first let's take it all the way back to E3 2018. The brand new sci-fi epic from Bethesda Game Studios, Starfield, was announced all the way back in E3 2018 and has since become one of the biggest mysteries in gaming. The development of Starfield has been extremely troubled, but also extremely secretive, as Bethesda doesn't really want anyone to see much of this game before it's absolutely ready, and that's probably a good thing. An in-game teaser was revealed at E3 2021, and the game was supposed to launch all the way back in November 11th of the following year, which would have landed on the anniversary of Skyrim, a game that Bethesda's Todd Howard frequently compares Starfield to. Obviously, that release date didn't happen, and Starfield was pushed back to a vague 2023 release window without much fanfare. The last we heard about a release date was when Todd Howard said the game would release in the first half of 2023, but we'll talk about that a little later in the video because I'm not sure I really believe it, and according to recent rumors, it's looking like the game was pushed back to the second half of 2023. Starfield is an open world sci-fi RPG set in the year 2310. It's been 20 years since a major war ravaged the solar system where you live, and you are now setting out across the numerous planets to find a place for yourself and learn about the world, or in Starfield's case, universe you inhabit, and where you stand on its many conflicts. The game structure is going to be similar to Skyrim in the sense that much of it's going to be left open-ended, and there will most likely be a lot of player choice. You can kind of do what you want for the most part, and a lot of it will be at your own pace, but the main story will be a constant presence and of course a frequent reminder of what you're ultimately working towards. According to the man himself, Todd Howard, there will be over 1,000 planets in Starfield across 100 star systems, and while it's unclear how big these planets are going to be, that's a pretty massive world on its own. Even if each of the 1,000 planets are super tiny, that's still a massive world with a ton of diversity for you to explore, and I'm sure this is going to be one of those games that people sink tens of thousands of hours into, kind of like how we all did Skyrim. As you probably already heard by now, a lot of the major game developers and publishers are expected to have some kind of showcase within the first few months of the year, and as is tradition at this point, it's the start of a new year. Lots of people are going to get their new systems over the holidays, and it's a great time to let everyone know what they should expect over the next 10 to 12 months. Nintendo is expected to hold some kind of Nintendo Direct presentation, and Sony will likely also hold a PlayStation showcase or a PlayStation State of Play in the near future, and right alongside them will be Microsoft. By the time you're watching this video, the Developer Direct from Xbox is likely going to be ongoing, or it's already ended, which is not going to be on the greater scale of other Xbox showcases, but Microsoft and Bethesda confirmed that there will be a separate showcase for Starfield in the quote-unquote future. According to Insider Gaming's Tom Henderson, there's a new Bethesda event for media planned in early March. Now, the article goes on to say that Insider Gaming sources have said that Microsoft will be hosting a Bethesda event, mainly for media at the beginning of March, but it's unclear if the event will also be public. So could this be a media briefing for the standalone show that Microsoft is planning for Starfield? Remember, Microsoft said, and I quote, "Very soon we will announce a release date. We are preparing a special event." Starfield is expected to launch in 2023, sometime in the first half, but according to some new rumors, that was actually pushed back to the second half of 2023, which kind of makes sense, mainly because if you look at the current lineup that Microsoft has to compete with, it might be better off for them to release Starfield sometime in the second half of 2023. Not to mention, they're going to want to show off Starfield as much as possible in order to make sure people are hyped for it. It's not like they're going to hot drop a trailer and say Starfield is out right now. Once we get this next Starfield event, we're going to learn a ton about this game on top of the information we already previously know, as well as a release date, new gameplay, and a trailer, and so much more. But speaking of Starfield's release date, that is a little up in the air right now. As I've said, all we've heard is that this game is coming in the first half of 2023, but since the clock, like I said, is kind of ticking and we still don't have a solid release date, I'm starting to think it's been pushed back again. Just about every game that is launching in the first half of 2023 already has a release date, so I'm kind of expecting Starfield's release date announcement actually to be later in the year. But like I said, not that there's anything wrong with that. The last release date that this game had attached to it was November of 2022. Obviously that didn't happen, but November 11th is kind of a lucky date for Bethesda, and it's one that Starfield already had. Another option is releasing earlier in the summer, perhaps in October or September, which is a popular time right now for new action games, and that's likely when Spider-Man 2 is releasing. But another option is Microsoft could totally take us by surprise at the conference and announce an early to mid 2023 release date, perhaps even launching the game by June, which would be a month after the release date of Tears of the Kingdom. Maybe they go a little crazy and release it sometime in February or March. However, I think those chances are actually non-existent, and my personal guess for Starfield's release date is sometime in either October or November, which would give them even more time to develop the game, keep it in the oven for a bit longer to polish it up so it's ready for a late 2023 release date. Now, when it comes to the sheer size of Starfield, this game is shaping up to be one of the biggest games I've ever seen. According to a number of Xbox insiders, Starfield is shaping up to be the biggest and most ambitious Bethesda game studios title to date. Granted, the phrase most ambitious really doesn't mean anything anymore, but the fact that insiders are saying that this is going to be Bethesda's biggest game is a pretty massive deal. BGS has made some pretty gigantic games in the past, and if this is going to be the biggest of them all, that's a pretty massive title to hold. Bethesda Game Studios themselves have stated that this game is going to be huge and feature a number of planets and worlds for the player to explore, but that's not the only department in which there are going to be some massive evolutions. According to some industry insiders communicating through Colt Eastwood, who is a popular Xbox channel on YouTube that I'm sure you guys have all watched, Starfield is going to take everything that they've done with Fallout and Skyrim and raise it. BGS is known to take a lot of risks, and after the last couple of Fallout games, I'm really eager to see something ambitious that's willing to take even more risks with the RPG genre, so I'm really hoping these rumors are indeed true. With the insane size of Starfield's world and gameplay possibilities, it's hard to think of a way that a AAA studio could take it all on. Games like No Man's Sky and Star Citizen take on gigantic galaxy-sized worlds like this, but many of you may or may not remember just how rocky of a start No Man's Sky launch was. Bethesda has been the quiet giant sitting on the sidelines developing their game, and the fact that they're getting ready to jump back in the ring with a game this big could either be a really good sign or a really bad one. Starfield's size and ambition could be an indication of Bethesda's massive comeback after a 5-year-long break from major releases, but then again, it may end up showing that the game wasn't enough, and maybe that time would have been better spent on working on games like Elder Scrolls 6, which at this rate won't launch until 2036, but that's another topic. It's also worth noting that despite Bethesda Game Studios really talking up the gunplay and combat in Starfield, the gameplay showcase really didn't look that good. I'm honestly surprised the gunplay seems so lackluster because I heard id Software, the developers of Doom, actually came in to assist on it, but from what we've seen, it looks all very basic. I'm not saying that the gameplay needs to be on the same level of the gunplay of Doom Eternal, but if this is what we're going to be doing for the entire experience, this is going to get really boring quickly. In order to keep people playing for hundreds of hours and remaining motivated to explore the 1,000 different planets, you're going to have to make sure that we're excited and eager to keep playing. One of the best ways to do that is riveting combat that keeps you wanting more, but if the combat remains this basic and unimpressive, I think a lot of people are going to end up putting their controllers down much earlier than Bethesda wants them to. We also don't have all of the details on how space exploration is going to work. For the long-term gameplay, one thing that we do know is that you're not going to run out of fuel, but hopefully the upcoming Bethesda showcase will give us some longer bits of raw gameplay so we can kind of see what everything is going to look like in motion. I'm just really hoping that the gunplay got touched up since the last build we saw, because I'm not really sure if this kind of combat is going to be enough to keep people invested for more than a dozen of hours or so. In addition to the possible issues with gunplay and gunplay loop in general, there are a lot of other things that could go wrong with Starfield, especially considering the fact that this is Bethesda Game Studios, which is known for having a ton of bugs with their games when it comes to launch, many of which don't get fixed by Bethesda, rather from independent mod developers themselves. While Bethesda's style of bugginess, or as a lot of people call it, Bethesda jank, used to give their games a bit of unique character, they have since become extremely outdated and game-breaking, as was the case with Fallout 76 and even Fallout 4 to an extent. Bethesda has a bad habit of letting the community clean up a lot of their messes, and given how buggy and glitchy modern AAA gaming has become, it's hard not to get worried about the state that Starfield will likely launch in, especially with Starfield being one of the biggest RPGs ever made. With the developer's track record regarding their game stability, I'm really not confident in Starfield's launch stability. Maybe Bethesda will surprise me, but since the studio really hasn't been that concerned about bugs in the past, not to mention they're using Creation Engine 2, a relatively new version of their engine, I don't really think that attitude is going to be very different for Starfield. I'm just hoping the bugs in the game are kept to a minimum minimum, like stuff in Fallout 3 and Skyrim, as opposed to the level of Fallout 76. One major thing we all have to consider throughout all of this is the fact that Bethesda is seriously on thin ice. The last decade or so of Bethesda games have been incredibly inconsistent, and many people think that they would rather just keep porting Skyrim to new platforms forever instead of actually create new stories within their universes. Bethesda used to be one of the most influential RPG developers in the entire world, but their last few first-party games really haven't been that impressive. And on top of that, a number of shady business decisions have caused a lot of their audience to kind of turn against them. With the insane number of Bethesda controversies over the last 5 to 10 years, on top of the fact that Starfield keeps getting delayed, the gaming community is on their last legs with this studio, and there are a number of rumors that if Starfield doesn't meet expectations or completely revive faith in Bethesda game development, future titles like Elder Scrolls 6 and Fallout 5 may end up being negatively affected, especially if Starfield doesn't end up being the comeback story that Bethesda Game Studios and parent company Microsoft are clearly hoping for. So is Bethesda Game Studios up for the task? It seems that they really took the complaints of Fallout 76 to heart, and it's seeming like Starfield really is that next generation epic RPG that we've all been waiting for, so at least that's a decent start. Now, as far as the technical aspects and amount of quality content in the game at the launch, that all still kind of remains to be seen, but everything that's been shown off thus far makes me really excited to see what the final product holds. Overall, I'm cautiously optimistic for Starfield, and I think that's the same boat that most gamers are in as well. On one hand, this could be the greatest Western RPG since Skyrim and completely revive Bethesda as storytellers and RPG crafters. On the other hand, it could be a completely underwhelming bug fest that definitely proves that Bethesda just isn't cut out for this thing anymore. But one thing is for certain, the future of Bethesda is entirely dependent on Starfield, and if the game does poorly, Bethesda's future as developers could be in question. Then again, if it does well, the RPG world will have one of its titans back in the ring, and that will surely do some pretty insane things to the marketplace. But what do you think will happen with Starfield? We should be seeing more of the game in the very near future at Microsoft's next Xbox showcase or the Bethesda Games showcase, so hopefully we get some solid information including a final release date and reveal. But until that happens, all we can do is wait for new Starfield information and hope that Bethesda understands the weight of this game's potential and the impact that it could have on them for the foreseeable future. Well guys, that is going to wrap it up with this video. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. Thank you all for tuning in, and if you're still watching at this point, don't forget to enter the 100,000 subscriber giveaway. We're giving away a PS5 and a game copy of your choice. Be sure to check the pinned comment for all of those details. Like the video, subscribe to the channel with your notifications turned on, and until next time guys, this has been Wes, and I will talk to you all on the next video.